So let's focus, as I said we will, on CO2 and just go through something you're well familiar with, but for background to make sure that we understand so that we can appreciate this paradigm shift. This is the emission of carbon dioxide from the automobile, normalized to 1. And one of the takeaways from this slide is to see the proportioning of the carbon dioxide that comes from the extraction, delivery, refinement, and then dispensing of the fuel compared to the emission of CO2 from the vehicle itself. Hybrid technology, which you're experiencing through the ride and drive today, is helping to offset this by a lower signature. And then the question is raised by many, what if we take away the gasoline, remove the carbon from the fuel, we'll hear more about that this afternoon, and operate this combustion vehicle on hydrogen? What does that do? Well, of course, it's going to reduce the carbon dioxide. But that's a teaser. It actually doesn't. If the hydrogen comes from the source that Bill Reiner indicated this morning, steam methane formation, then the signature is actually substantially larger than that. That's the carbon dioxide now, nothing from the vehicle here, but just from the provision of the hydrogen as a fuel. That kind of brings in the fuel cell vehicles. So that was my teaser to bring in fuel cell vehicles. So let's look at the hybrid. Here we've got hydrogen operated combustion engine. Combustion here, we replace the reciprocating engine with a fuel cell, replace it here, the fuel cell, and now we've got a fuel cell vehicle. Some of those attributes that arise from that is the increased efficiency, the reduction in the amount of air that we need to process, and the removal of any combustion pollutants. So these are kind of the features that make the hydrogen fuel cell vehicle attractive to us. Where that pencils out here is an improvement due to that increased efficiency of the fuel cell and its operation. But remember now, it's also not emitting a criteria pollutant, so it's kind of a win-win in that regard. Again, the hydrogen is coming from natural gas, and we're improving that. Engineering, as we heard about this morning, that has to take the reins and begin to work the solutions here, is improving that. So we are now somewhere down right around here and getting better. But depending upon the availability of natural gas, we've got to look for other sources. And a lot of attention has been given in the last 15 years on coal and using coal as a source of hydrogen. It's something we're very rich in. It helps address this fuel independence. But what you might expect is that its carbon signature is not particularly attractive. Coal has the highest carbon to hydrogen ratio of any fossil fuel. So options we look at, like renewable electrolysis and biomass, use of biomass. Those look very, very good. So you see this is encouraging, but we've got some work to do. But nonetheless, we're moving forward into this future. You're driving today an advanced version of this vehicle. By the way, that's the mayor of the city of Irvine, previous mayor. City council has been driving this vehicle. The current mayor is driving this vehicle. It's part of the strategy to inform decision makers about this future. What do their neighbors think about this vehicle? What is the refueling experience all about? And we know that other players are providing remarkable technologies into the space, GM with the Equinox and Honda with the Clarity as well. These vehicles require infrastructure and refueling. This is the station at UCI. It's the station in the world that's in the greatest demand today by all the OEMs that are participating in this hydrogen future. We're backlogged, we're saturated, we're overtaxed, we need to expand. A few years ago we had one car today, now we have more than 15 cars per day refueling. Well, that's kind of a segue into this fuel cell future. So let's kind of catch our breath and look at fuel cells. I want to begin by looking at combustion. Remember, it's this driver of 80% of the world's power today through this very remarkable process with these heat engines that we use in power plants to transform that chemical energy into some useful product. We do that by taking that thermal energy and driving it through a piston or turbine. in this case through a generator to provide electricity. But due to these impacts, there's a crying need for a combustion alternative. And what is emerging is fuel cell technology. And this particular graph shows what that strategy is. It's a one-step transformation of the fuel, fossil fuel, to electricity. And almost intuitively, you can sense a increased efficiency here over the combustion, and in fact, it's there. We also have another thermodynamic reality, is that this is not constrained by the Carnot efficiency boundary that we have in heat engines. But we don't have any combustion here either, so no creation and emission of pollutant species. Some of you have been studying fuel cells, so you'll understand how it works, but let's just make sure that we have the basic fundamentals in mind. We have a fuel that comes into a chamber, we call it the anode chamber. That fuel is hydrogen, and at the surface of that green electrode, it reacts and gives off 2 electrons and results in a proton. Here's the proton, and this yellow thing or gold thing in the middle, electrolyte, says, you know, you're welcome to come through, but those electrons, I'm not going to offer you passage. You've got to find another route. That's terrific for engineering, because our route is to go through a circuit and do something like light a light bulb. The electrons then come back a bit spent. They ionize oxygen from the air. That combines with the proton to give us our product of water. We have a variety of fuel cell types that are emerging today. We have the proton exchange membrane fuel cell. We have the phosphoric acid fuel cell. We have the molten carbonate fuel cell. And we have the solid oxide fuel cell. Most of you, if not all of you, have been in touch with me with respect to the, Bloom box, right? So that's where that fits in right here. And these 3 types are what we call large fuel cells. They want to be base loaded. They're relatively high temperature at the phosphoric acid, 200 degrees Celsius. And then these 2 are very high temperature from 650 degrees Celsius to 1,000 degrees Celsius. So that's part of the family, along with proton exchange membrane fuel cells, which are small, being thought of for backup power. They're being used today to replace batteries in forklifts, and they are having a few other applications, such as the automobile. So this is the go-to technology for the automobile. Low temperature, you can turn it off and on. These you can turn it off and on, but it takes a number of hours to get it up and to turn it down. So a lot of advantages of the proton exchange fuel cell for the automobile. So let's take it to the automobile. Here you've got it, the fuel cell stack. You enclose it, you bring in some hydrogen for fuel, some oxygen from the air, and then you produce DC current that then can drive the motor. This is your engine with the exhaust, which is going to be water and nitrogen. This virtually is the configuration for the automobile, all right? And here's the automobile as represented by the Equinox of General Motors.